My guest on today's show is Daniel Berman, aka Red Rackham, international DJ, producer, broadcaster, host of online music shows, and the long-time running Smugglers Inn, and the name of his label. And now the new daily show, The Berman Sermon, on Twitch and Instagram. As we speak, the electronic music world, dance music, dance culture, DJ culture, festivals, clubland, artists, entrepreneurs, the industry, like many others industries as a whole, including livelihoods across the planet, are suffering from COVID-19. Personal anxiety is high. Uncertainty on where to make income in the music industry and the arts world is on everyone's mind, and protecting physical and mental health is a major concern. Now, you've been a DJ for over 20 years now, and you've DJed across the globe many times. You've been broadcasting shows online for a while also. You've been running labels. You've released different types of electronic music with records like In Love Again, How I Program, Wonky Disco Banger, Tomato Pope, all of which have made big splashes across the dance floors and made it to the crates of many DJs across the planet, including the likes of Mike Huckabee, Motor City Drum Ensemble, Fortet, and reaching all the way to Detroit and Chicago, which is an amazing accomplishment coming from a fishing village in Scotland. Now, you've recently commenced working with a lot of new up-and-coming DJ producers and new boutique club nights that are focusing on narratives on music rather than straight-up DJ sets. Today, we're going to be discussing mental health as a DJ, producer, the way you deal with stress, anxiety, balancing personal and professional life, CBT, meditation, live streaming and broadcasting as a business vehicle in the industry, your interest in Discogs and how you're using Discogs at the moment, and some of your new projects and mentoring. Daniel Berman, Red Rackham.
Hello. Hi, James. Thanks for having me. That was some intro. Wow. Yeah. I just want to put it out there, by the way, that I'm in no way saying that I've got things mastered. Yeah. So gotcha. A lot of the things you mentioned there about, sort of stress and mental health and anxiety and stuff like that, it's an ongoing situation for me and for a lot of people. So, work in progress.
Absolutely. Well, look, it's great Sure.
I'm not the oracle,
Yes, of course. Look, I think we all work on different methods and practices and find ways to improve our day-to-day life. Look, it's great to have you here. It's been ages since I had you over in Dubai for your Hot Coins release, and I've noticed now you're back in the UK. Is that because of the current world events?
No. I moved back to the UK in June 2018. I lived in Berlin from 2011 until 2018, and I met my now wife, in Berlin, and she's from Japan, and she didn't really have any plans to stay in Berlin. She just met me because her visa in the UK had expired, so you can do 3 months on the Schengen, and then she was just going to go back to the UK and get another student visa. We met, fell in love, and she decided to stay in Berlin to be with me. But in her mind, she always wanted to go back to the UK. So after about 3 or 4 years of being together in Berlin, we put things into motion to move back to the UK. And she's really been enjoying being back in the UK because she can speak English more, and there's a more. She feels a sort of different environment from Berlin. Berlin's very, it's quite a hard city. It's quite a tough place. And we're living in Bristol right now, which I personally find sometimes a little bit tame, but it is very friendly, so it's very kind of easygoing, quite mellow. So that's been really, really nice for her,
Excellent.
Yeah.
So, I mean, your move to Berlin, you were there for quite some time.
Yeah.
I mean, what was the decision to move there, and why and how did it help your music career and you personally?
Funnily enough, it was a relationship ending. So, right. I moved back to the UK because of a relationship, kind of partly. I had a long-term relationship around the time that my sort of first success was happening and stuff. And then when that came to an end, I really wanted to get away from where I was living, and I just wanted to escape. But I have to say, I'm very, very grateful for that whole thing, because it was really difficult for me emotionally at the time. You know, I was very heartbroken and kind of obviously probably in a bit of, I wouldn't say psychosis, but I wasn't myself. You know, I was really kind of edgy and kind of, you know, feeling uncomfortable about every decision. When I moved to Berlin, it was like amazing to start again and to start from scratch. And I rebuilt myself. I created a new Danny Berman, you know, and wasn't always a good Danny Berman, you know, because Berlin has a lot of, you know, temptation. You know, Berlin is famous for the temptation.
Sure.
And I have to say that any kind of cliche that you can imagine that happens in Berlin, I did it all, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
So I do sometimes pine back to those early stupid days, because it was amazing, you know, and I really enjoyed having no limit, you know, I had no limit, you know. But obviously, as you get a little bit older and you sort of realize that it can be at the cost of personal relationships, and also people don't always respect you if you're off the rails, you know.
Absolutely.
So, you know.
And how did you find it career-wise for you being there?
Being in Berlin, it was amazing, because for me, right, I always felt like in the UK, there's this kind of tall poppy syndrome. I mean, Berlin isn't perfect by any means. It's quite a hard place. People don't realize, because it's got this utopia image, and, you know, you can just party all day, and, you know, the housing standard is high and all this. But, you know, it's also quite impersonal. It's a capital city, you know, it's quite private. People never really have you round to their apartment. It's incredibly rare that you get to go to someone's apartment. Most of the time, you don't know where anyone even lives. They might tell you the street. So it's very much like everyone has their apartment and their own little private space, and people socialize more in public and then going to clubs, which, you know, the UK is like, hey, come round for a cup of tea. So that was tough for me to have that lack of personal connection sometimes with people, you know, party friends. But for my career, what I would say is there's a respect. There's like a kind of an acknowledgement in Germany, or there was by any means, that being a DJ or working in pro audio, working for Native Instruments, or, you know, working for the dance press, or even working in a club, you know, like it's somehow more credible in Germany, and probably more especially in Berlin. I think the rest of Germany is not comparable to Berlin. So I took a lot of solace out of that I felt like, you know, I had more kind of, not value, but, you know, it felt like what I was doing was taken a bit more seriously in Berlin. Does that make sense?
Yep.
The UK has the tall poppy syndrome. So when I started to have success, I also started to have a bit of like haters, you know, like people that were my friends, maybe making digs and comments. And I'm quite a sensitive person. So, you know, I struggled with that, because I didn't think I was changing. Maybe I was, but I didn't think I was, you know, becoming an asshole. And then when I moved to Berlin, it was encouraged to be an asshole now.
It's funny. I found that also like a similar, that tall poppy syndrome you're talking about is also very similar to what I experienced in Sydney, and
of course,
still seems to sort of be.
Australia is rife for that shit. You know, I love Australia and I love touring there. But you can tell there's been beef with people, because I know a lot of people in Australia. And touring around, I got to know all the different promoters and touring people and all that. And there was definitely some background vibes, you know. So
absolutely.
I guess it makes you, it projects, it's the cannon that fires you out of where you come from, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, it seems you're having fun and very excited about your new Twitch channel, the Berman Sermon Daily Show. How is that inspiring you at the moment?
Well, I have to say it's a much needed routine, because this is something that I've really struggled with over the years. If you want to talk about mental health and stuff like that, the lack of routine for me, sometimes I can, you know, be really depressed or uptight about everything being the same and being really boring and just repetitive. So that element of it can sometimes get to me. But then the flip side is my productivity sometimes is really affected by not having a routine, you know, not having an anchor. So, you know, for example, the broadcast that I'm doing, it's 2 p.m. every day. And that gives me a smaller window in the morning to get things done. So I'm I think having smaller windows to do things in is really good for my productivity, because I know I've got to at 1 o'clock I have to have a shower, have my lunch. I've got this routine before I do the show. I always have a shower before I do the show, because it's the maximum fresh that you can feel. That's one of my wellness tips, by the way.
Yeah,
you're gonna
awesome.
imagine like anything you're doing. Imagine you're going to go to a job interview. You have to have a shower 15 minutes before, or a date. So imagine how if it was really inconvenient, but you still have to have that shower.
I'm finding it's so useful to like even now we're working from home, is to actually dress like you're going to work. You have to do it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
I put on my pants, my shirt.
Makes you feel more business-like. Well, unfortunately, these are my work clothes. My work clothes. I don't have. The only smart clothes I have are from when I got married, and unfortunately, they don't fit me anymore, because it's a good marriage. In terms of the show, right? I mean, for me, right, this is the thing. I've always felt that being in dance music is too faceless, and you're not encouraged to be a character. If you are a character, and you're not sort of like, I don't know, like, I'm not going to name names, but not the kind of self-destructive, suicidal, madcap DJ covered in tattoos or whatever. There doesn't really seem to be many other characters in dance music apart from the sort of, artist photo with the sad face. Or so for me, I've always felt a bit limited by. That's why I love broadcasting, because making records, that is an expression, but in the end, it's kind of just fluffy, kind of something for people to dance to in a club, or maybe the odd hardcore fan to notice some kind of hidden message. So I do have a lot of hidden messages in my music. And then DJing, when I used to DJ back in the day in bars and in Nottingham, when I was a bar DJ, I really felt like I could truly express myself, because there wasn't the same scrutiny of you. I was playing non-vocal background, deep house, broken beat, soulful shit, whatever, just as long as it wasn't aggressive or invasive. And then when you become a top level touring DJ, or, I was probably third level or something, but, when you're headlining, there's an intense scrutiny of what you're doing. There's an expectation on you, that you feel like the promoters are probably grading you, how nice was he? Or, if you're too nice, then they don't respect you. Or, you get into this whole kind of mind game of like, everything feels really important and feels really, so that's taken a lot of the fun out of DJing for me. That I really miss that kind of free, like my friends in Nottingham, there was a really nice supports network. There was a bit of friendly rivalry, but essentially we all had fairly similar tastes, and we would all go and hear each other. Like if I finished at 1 and my friend was still playing till 3, I'd go there. It was really, good times.
Yeah.
Very much music based, all about the music and about this shared
and that's what you're finding, that you're able to sort of get back to that kind of expression through the show.
Totally, because it's really personal. It's me just digging in my record collection and geeking out, and talking. And, it's not just about music. There's also, I talk about mental health and wellness things. And awesome. I found that a little bit, it's easy in a conversation, and it's easy if you're at an after party and you're maybe high or something, to get deep with someone, whether they want you to or not. Usually not in my case, but yeah. I laid my soul. I mean, Berlin, I had a period in Berlin where I was just like pretty much just telling strangers like, my life story. And, like people have told me stories. I actually heard a really good one, by the way. This was quite funny. Was the backstage at About Blank. I was in Griesmüller, which is, quite a celebrated club that unfortunately just closed down. But and this guy came up to me, Sunday. I was sober. This was my sober. By the time I was sober, I was there. Maybe I just played or something. He's like, "Hey, I remember you. Yeah, you stood up in About Blank and you told the whole backstage they were fucking boring cunts." And I was like, well, that does kind of sound like the kind of thing I would do. I can't remember it, but and he's like, my friend, he told me, he said, see that guy? He's a fucking good DJ, but he's a complete fucking asshole. I was like, that's Berlin. That's what I love about Berlin. You know, Berlin is like, you know, you can play the best set of your life and they'll be like, yeah, but I remember when you K-holed and, you know, you humiliated yourself. You know, so Berlin doesn't do any ass kissing.
Yeah. They'll tell you how it is, huh?
Yeah. So, you know, like, for me, like, I was able to be open and honest on the party scene, right? But obviously that has, you know, residual issues, you know, like residual issues on your mental health and residual issues on your health and also your career health. You know, I think, to be honest, if you look at all the people that are successful in dance music, they're not openly usually going, like, you know, unless they're like, you know, Villa Lobos or so, they're not openly out there trashed, you know what I mean? No,
that's correct. That's right.
Yeah. So
I see that. I understand. I see that.
I tried to rip up the rule book, but it didn't quite work out for me, you know?
Sorry, continue.
I was going to say, doing my show, you're right, though. It's like records, right? When I go and DJ abroad, I might take some records with me, but usually there's a healthy portion is off USB. And it's always new music. I don't know it at all. I don't even listen. I check the promos. It goes through a assessment kind of protocol. And then when I play it in the club, often it's the first time I've heard it. So it's a risk. When I'm digging in my records at home, I mean, even though I've got thousands of them, it's still like discovering an old friend, you know?
Yeah, totally. Well, look, I mean, it looks like you're having a ball, and I think that's really important to make sure that we're continuing having fun with what we're doing with music, and I mean that's why we got into it, right?
Yeah, but when it becomes your primary source of income, then
yes, it has to. Yeah, there's a balance there, and
you know, the dream is to get paid for doing what you love.
Of course.
But when you start getting paid for it, it ceases to be the thing that you love and becomes, it's like a relationship, you know, it's like the first couple of years, it's like, yeah, wicked. And then after a while, you're like, well, just got to kind of try and maintain the status quo, you know?
Yeah. Yes.
You know, it's a test, I think, you know, for me, it's all about creativity and it's like making records. It's sad to say, but the actual musical content doesn't always excite me anymore. It's the response to them, which is when you're starting to rely on external shit, which, you know, is a little bit like maybe addiction problems and stuff where, you know, I realized this recently that I got such an emotional boost from, you know, success or attention, you know, and it kind of rubbed out those kind of issues in me a little bit. It kind of negated them, obviously not fully. And then when things like the virus started to happen and all that, you know, and just moving back to the UK, when I moved back to the UK in 2018, I couldn't work. I just couldn't function in my job because relocating to a foreign country, getting a visa, loads of shit, you know, went down. So it was I think for me, when your job becomes this kind of platform to feel good about yourself, it's a little bit dangerous. It's a dangerous thing, you know?
Yeah, well, I think you have to have this ability to be aware of that validation and or approval seeking behavior, really. Like, it's like once you can, I guess, understand it and you're able and pull away from it, I think that's where it can be healthy rather than
I didn't.
Well, that's okay. Look, I mean, like, you're aware of it now. And,
no, absolutely. Yeah. But it's just, for me, it's quite, you know, when you talk about wellness and stuff like that, I think it's an interesting observation that I'm not like there going, oh, I'm terrible. It's just interesting to look back on the high points and realize that there wasn't really much awareness there from me. And
sure.
It's interesting though, when you're riding on the adrenaline and the dopamine of, you know, fame and fortune and being in demand and all this, you know, it's really interesting. I don't really remember much about it, all apart from I thought my life was amazing, you know.
Well, I hope you can find a new way to continue doing all the great work you've done and finding that balance, because you know, I don't feel like you should be hanging up your boots yet, mate.
No. I'm not. But I'm interested because, especially with what's happening now. I mean, there's not much chance to perform probably for the next 6 months.
Exactly.
And I think it's a great opportunity to try new things. And this Twitch thing would have never happened if I wasn't, in the lockdown. I would be still battering away at the tunes, thinking, "Oh yeah, I'll get this, tour together and all that."
Yeah. So it's giving us that new way to construct new ways of communication.
Well, I think the current business model in the music industry is broken because it puts all this pressure. Basically, you have to perform. The only way to make any money is to perform, right? Or to do like high profile remixes, which most of the time are only done by people who have, high performing DJ sort of cachet. So if you think about it, it's essentially profile based, and way to get profile seems to be very limited. It's just basically, high amount of press coverage, maybe some kind of scandals, some kind of, online shit, etc. And I think there's not much creativity around, is there? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't see where's the DJs being creative. Where's the, you get someone like Techie Latex, who's a great DJ, but everyone's like, oh my God, 3 decks. And I mean, I remember back in the day, people would be on 5 decks or it's the base level of what being a DJ is just kind of evaporated.
I think, mate, look, I think now with this whole crisis, that it feels like a lot of the hype is going to be dismantled, like the stuff that you know what I mean, like where it's because in any field or any industry, it's just like gone straight to the it's blown right out of proportion. The whole influencer DJ. And don't get me wrong, I'm not to say that some people are very clever with the way they've used the whole influencer role and they're amazing artists at the same time. So if they can marriage those two together, they're well done, But there are a lot of people out there that are just riding off the hype machine, So that just brings me to the next thing I wanted to say, like what are your thoughts with this extreme need for everyone to get on with this whole digital age of business and communication now?
Well, I think it's interesting, isn't it, that because of the crisis, that I feel slightly concerned that it's just pushed us more into an internet world, and it's like we can't actually legally, really socialize anymore, So I'm a little bit concerned that because in the end, it pretty much looks like, this is going to be like, this is probably going to be normal life one day, because there's probably going to be more new viruses that they don't have cures for. So, I mean, that slightly concerns me, but I suppose in the end, it also creates new opportunities to connect with people, like, for example, mentoring. I wanted to touch on that. I wanted to touch on that a bit later. Yeah. I mean, like, look, you've got to embrace it, haven't you? I mean, I think I have a tendency sometimes to sort of, hark back to the good old days and all that. So this is definitely dragging me further into the future. I've got a lot of things that I'm doing right now, James, which I know it sounds like a cliche. I'd love to tell you about, but I don't want to say. But I've got some technical support, which is really good. I've got some friends who are like real techie nerd people.
Oh, that's great. I've got a couple of those. I've got a couple of those guys.
And they've suddenly stepped into my life. And I mean, I've known them for years, but we're really talking every day. And, they're trying to provide me with some technical support, because I know what I want to do, right? And I know how to do it. But with the internet and with all these different software packages and all that, I mean, I'm not like some complete, I know how to use computers, but I'm not a programmer,
Sure.
So
it's great. I mean, I've been having some great support from people, even to get this new podcast and this new business that I'm trying to do around it, and it's a new world. So this is part of it, and And so, sorry, go on.
I was going to say, like, we're reconnecting because of technology and circumstance.
Yeah. Well, that's right. We spoke back in February.
We're both on the same page. I'm so on that page now, James, because at the end of the day, I don't want to be some kind of elder statesman. I mean, I hate seeing veteran and shit like that. You know, it's like, I'm not a veteran. I'm only 43. You know, like he was in the war, you know, like, but you know, I want to, you know, I know there's many people in the world who share the same tastes as me and who share the same vision and ethos. And I want to connect with them. I want to build a community, and I want the community to be about the celebration and
I'm all for it.
You know, fascination of dance music, you know, like the music, the freedom, the hedonism, the, you know, the kind of, you know, the misfits, you know. It's like when I was into dance music in the 90s, you know, it wasn't loads of cool people swanning around, you know, it wasn't like that at all. It was quite punk, you know, it was, it was dirt, you know, it was, you were an outlaw, you know, and the music reflected that, you know. And
totally
have you noticed, by the way, there's now, whenever I go on YouTube, there's these like music software, like loop pack adverts that I get, obviously because of the algorithm, right? And my favorite one is when I'm using loops, they have to sound like me. You know, when I'm using someone else's pre-created fake music tool, it has to sound like me. It's like, dude, you know what I mean? Like, so there's a whole industry now. They're trying to basically make it so that you don't have to have. There's another one where the guy's like, hey, if you've got no musical knowledge like me, you can still, you know. And it's like, I'm not being funny, but being styled like a music producer, you know, the old KRKs, you know, etc. I'm not just in KRKs, but they always have KRKs. It's like, you know, minimum investment. Scott Storch has KRKs. I've been watching a lot of Scott Storch videos, and he has KRKs in his little writing suite, and he's had like, you know, Timberland and all that in there. Right? So what am I talking about? You know,
his Instagram's incredible.
yeah. But basically, all I'm saying is I'm really concerned that there is a whole industry which is basically to help people fake it. Yeah. Like,
yes.
Like I've looked into syncing a lot recently. I've been doing sync writing workshops, and there's people on there who are like, hey, I don't really know what genre my music is, but the loops I'm using are classed as like, you know, home retro chill. So, you know, like really, there's thousands of people out there on their iPhone putting loops together and thinking that means they're a music producer, you know? I'm not being a horrible snob. But,
no, I hear you. I hear you. I
mean, they should listen to Pepe Braddock and then, you know, like throw their iPhone in the sea. You know?
Yes, the intricate producers that like just go way beyond, like so deep into the way they formulate their music.
And it doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be lots of things. I mean, it's like what you do with it that's important. You know, like really, you know.
I love a quartet. Quartets just blows me away. You know, like such a simple producer. Like, but
have lots of elements in the tracks, but it's like a singular use of melody.
Yes,
it's a sense. It's a sense, right? And a sense is not. I mean, you know, all right, be a stylist. You could say, yeah, someone else has made the clothes and you style the clothes. That's probably, I guess, an analogy for using loops, but. You know, anyway, I'm just saying that I'm concerned about this, and I think that I want to preach the gospel about, you know, I'm not saying you have to sit in a dark room for 7 years and have no friends or anything, but, you know, there should be some kind of recognition of the difference between, you know, a McDonald's and a, you know,
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
I'm with you there.
So that's something that I feel very passionate about. And when I was DJing, when I was younger and that, it was the school of hard knocks, you know, you didn't get a chance. Like, I mean, my productions used to get laughed out of the DJ shop. I'd take them in and they'd be like, what? No, this is, you know, I remember putting it on like, you know, 10 seconds and it was taken off with a shake of the head, you know?
Yeah.
It wasn't handed to me and people like me on a plate. And I'm not saying it is to everybody, you know, but it's like nowadays there's this culture of like, you can't actually say something's crap, can you? Because, you know?
yeah. Good. That's a very good observation. So in recent years, CBT, mindfulness, meditation, creating positive, cultivating relationships and environments have been very important to you. Tell me about some of your daily practices, what you do before gigs, and how you've seen the impact of implementing these rituals and practices benefiting you in your life.
Yeah, right. So basically, James, in the past when I was touring, obviously I was always focused on the performance aspect, but I really treated it as sort of like a chance to, socialize, get to know people and all that. And I also was worried about, sort of maybe seeming rude, or I'd heard stories about DJs, not being interested in the promoter. And, so I was maybe a little bit sensitive to that. So I didn't really always take the time to look after my mental health and to rest. And so something that I think has come from my age and also from my sobriety and being married, etc., is a new, more holistic approach to when I'm touring, to really, obviously the performance is the most important thing with me always, but to realize that there was elements, things that I could do around that would really help the performance. So my rituals that I like to do, this might sound really kind of obvious, but going back to the hotel before the gig is something that I didn't used to do. I used to hang out with a promoter, maybe go for some drinks, maybe go to someone's flat before the gig, bit of partying maybe, or even do a radio show. I mean, I still do radio shows, but I wasn't ever really worried or caring about how tired I was. I wasn't really kind of understanding that would have a massive impact on my, feeling when I'm performing, and then also interacting with the people who booked me. So now what I do is I try and have at least an hour or two on my own in the hotel room before I play. And that has really been a radical change for me,
Yeah.
Because
amazing.
Before I was just hanging on. Like I've done gigs before where like literally, like no sleep whatsoever, all day flying, and then, 2 in a row or even 3 in a row where you've like no sleep whatsoever, traveling all day, turn up, do the gig. And nowadays, I guess I've just simplified it. I really enjoy just being in a nice, clean hotel. It doesn't have to be fancy, just a clean, nice hotel room with some crap on the box, or chatting to my wife on, WhatsApp, just something to level me. And I'm quite, I don't know, it's like I don't know how to put it. It's like a revelation for me that really looking after myself a bit more, it's really impacted well on my DJing. And when I've done gigs where it's super chaotic, chaos, everyone's high, the backstage of the club is just absolutely insane. And I can just kind of weave my way through that. I've helped promoters before at the end of the night when, they've had a disaster, or, they've lost something, or, something crazy's going off. And I'm like the most together person in the place, and that's a really great
contrast. Yeah.
I like maybe if the promoter's stressed about something or having a nightmare or maybe a problem with their partner, and I can be that kind of like, hey man, don't worry, everything's okay. Or, meeting some, maybe like 20-year-old young female girls who are like, oh, we love your music. Oh, and I feel like I'm their dad now. You know what I mean? I'm like, hey, just make sure when, don't, rave safe, So that's been a real, and that's really, really impacted on my, I guess, emotionally, just being in more. I used to think that being a hero was, being the last man standing, the swashbuckling DJ, the legend, I used to turn up at gigs and they'd be like, oh, we've heard about you. Or, I remember playing a gig in Rotterdam and, refusing some offers, shall we say. Yes. And they were literally like, but you're Red Rackham. Like it broke them that I was like, hey, not tonight, lads, but you're Red Rackham, you're crazy. So that's been really, a good one.
And what about your daily practice though? Like for
reading
just like what's a normal morning routine for you that kind of puts you?
Morning routine. Yeah. Well, right. I wake up quite early, and I do sometimes wake up a bit stressed out. I noticed that in my sleep, especially with the pandemic thing going on, it has affected my anxiety. It has raised my anxiety levels. Yep, so there's a little background hum now, which I haven't felt really much since I lived in Berlin, but there's a little kind of knee, So when I wake up in the morning, right, I basically usually have a very slow hour or two. My wife gets up a bit later than me. She's better at sleeping than me. And I just kind of get up, make myself a cup of herbal tea, maybe read a little bit of a book, or even put some records away downstairs, doing something really, really mundane and soft. I can't deal with, a hard email or phoning up, the power company about that bill, or, I need to build myself up towards that during the day. So I think I've always had that thing of like, if I'd had a real job, right, and had to, have my ass kicked all my life, I think I would probably be a lot more disciplined as a person, Yeah. So I'm not one of these people that needs time to wake up. I wake up, I'm like that, I'm thinking, but I need an hour or two to get my mind into a good place. Does that make sense?
And so what does that look like? What do you actually do for that to get your mind right?
Into a good place. Well, I listen sometimes to some guided meditation stuff on YouTube. I also know I've been going to Buddhist meditation meetings, and I've been learning things like counting to 21 with every out breath, and then counting backwards from 21. So that's a really good one. If you're feeling a little bit anxious, count to 21 with every out breath, and then count backwards down from 21. I've been watching teachings of a Rinpoche that my parents are really into called Yawingmi or Yamingi Minja Rinpoche. And he's brilliant. He's a young Rinpoche. A Rinpoche is like a kind of, or like kind of descendant of a Karmapa, kind of super high up Buddhist Lama style. And he basically is great because he's really young. And he actually suffered from anxiety himself. He suffered from anxiety and depression. So he's not one of these guys who's coming with the whole, like, just do this with your mind. He's like, I've been there. I totally understand,
Yeah.
There's the thing about the monkey mind. The monkey mind is just this chatter, And a lot of the things that you're stressing and having anxiety about are basically just your mind just, chattering away. It's really important to do things which basically take your present, you like into the present moment. So do you know about the direct experience network, James?
No.
Right. This is my new production project, by the way. I've done some like kind of, I guess, hassle audio-ish kind of Zenka, like clever techno, like public school educated techno or something, trendy techno, but I'm going to call it a direct experience network. Yeah.
Excellent.
That's the part of your brain that you use when you're making music, playing music, you're cooking, you're doing sport, you're having sex, you're doing drugs, whatever. You're not using your hippocampus, which is the memory. So when you're in the moment, your senses are heightened, right? So, if you're really stressed out and you gobble down your lunch, you don't taste it properly.
Yeah.
You don't even notice it.
Yes.
And in the converse, when you're using your direct experience network, your senses are heightened. You smell the perfume more, or the food tastes badass, or in sport, mate, you can smell the cut grass when you're on the sports field stronger. Yeah. So I heard a really good thing about a mafia hitman, a mafia boss who was going to be whacked, right? He said he'd been in the room many times with people and they hadn't come out of the room, and this time it was his turn. He was going to go in the room and he wasn't going to come out. He did come out because obviously he was doing the interview, but he wasn't going to come out. I don't know what he did but he basically said that he can still smell the lilies. He can hear he can totally remember his senses being whacked up 1,000%, because imagine how present you are when you think you're going to be killed.
Yeah, exactly.
You're like, this is it.
Yeah.
You're not going to be thinking, I wish I'd sent that email, are you?
Well, look, I'm looking forward to the this project. It sounds interesting. Look, I'm just going to finish up with one last part here. You've already created a bit of a legacy for yourself in electronic music with your production as a DJ, a broadcaster. Now, is mentoring and working with these new up-and-coming DJs, and I remember you telling me about this club night and that you're creating. Is this the next chapter of your legacy? Tell me a little bit about what this chapter looks like.
Well, for me, it's about, as we talked about before, I want to reconnect with that sort of excitement and kind of, non-hype, non-media thing. And with the club night, it's called Absolute Body Control. And my idea is to do a sort of genreless kind of, like just good music, like a bit like in the like Optimo or Electric Chair or those kind of nights where it was just about a quality level. So I've been doing it in a small venue in Bristol called Cozy's, which is a very legendary venue. And I've been getting DJs that aren't like big name famous DJs. They're people that have real jobs and are just enthusiasts about music, because I'm more excited about that than I am about, it's like booking a big name who's playing 3 gigs a week and, paying way over the odds just to sort of have some better press. I'm just tired of that sort of dance music dynamic of like, X plus Y equals $signs, So I'm really interested in nurturing and supporting people that maybe don't even consider themselves a DJ. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, there's a different level of, there's this other passion there, isn't there?
Yeah. I was a teacher at college for 7 years, and I used to do DJ skills workshops, right? In the evening, I was a DJ skills tutor, and I used to tutor people who were sometimes too scared to touch a turntable, and really, the record, the needle was flying around and I really got a lot out of actually supporting those people and encouraging them. And, and actually by the end of it, they could, DJ fairly competently. They maybe weren't going to be, playing stadiums. But so for me, I think, again, the whole music thing of like, there's no point doing music right now unless you're going to be a famous DJ. That's bullshit, I think, I'm really interested to just get people back to the core basic elements of it, like playing records, choosing records, having passion for music, not passion for social media. So for me, with the club night, and then also with I've done a lot of A&R. I've done a lot of support for people with their music off the books, off the record. I've mix engineered for people, and I've not been credited. That's okay, I've even done mix engineering for people before, and they didn't want it to be my mix engineering, so they used my mix engineering as a guide. Can you imagine? That's quite funny, isn't it? Yeah. So that's like, it's not, I don't know what it is. It's not ghost mixing. It's something else, but it kind of, but so I've had this backroom kind of place, and to be honest, it does get a little bit tiring sometimes, getting hit up constantly by people. Hey, can you tell me this? Can you tell me that? But at the same time, lots of people have helped me. So it's important to think about that, So yeah, I'm really going to start something new. It's coming, and it's going to be, I guess, a kind of platform or a service. You've done a few nights already with this concept before the crisis hit. Like, yeah, I did one in Berlin at a venue called Soju, which was a really famous venue, really cool, like a Korean style disco bar. And resident was like Johnny Wilkes from Optimo, Hooney, Africane 808, DJ Noma, you name it, all the real shit. And the guy who runs that, or ran that, is called Hyun Wanna, and he gave me a chance, and I did a night called Room 2, right? Excellent. And I only did a few. And it was my concept again was the second room or the back room, Got it. Because clubs in the 90s, you'd have the main room pumping
exactly.
You'd go upstairs and there'd be like some, cosmic, like, Harry Thurman underwater on and loads of glitter and, and then that became the main room.
I miss that, the back room.
Totally. But, it's like that used to be like room 2 or room 3. There used to be room 3.
Yeah.
That used to, if you were, how can we put it? If you weren't capable of the pace of the main room, you could go there and you could have a nice chat with a plant, like talk to the wall,
Fantastic. Daniel, Red Rackham, it was amazing having you on Electronic Music Man. We're definitely going to do it again. Probably we'll give it some time for when I want to see like what happens over the course of the remainder of this year, and then come back and revisit the stuff that you're doing. And it'd be great to have you back on here. Tell the listeners where we can check out your website,
Okay, well, I do a daily show on Twitch. and it's called the Berman Sermon because my name is Daniel Berman, and that is 2 p.m. GMT, so UK time.
Yep.
And it's usually till about 4, so it's 2 hours ish. 2 p.m. till 4 p.m. GMT, and that's daily. And the URL, sorry, it's they're emptying the rubbish outside. Give me a sec.
You're right. You're right.
I just did, it's twitch.tv/red_Rackham, RACKEM. Yeah.
Excellent. Awesome. And is there any other websites we can or links that?
Yeah, if you go to SoundCloud/red-Rackham and or I've got loads of Rinse FM shows because I do a show for Rinse FM, a radio show.
Yep, so excellent.
There's loads of stuff. If you go to my SoundCloud or if you go to Instagram is The Real Red Rackham.
Yep.
All one word, RACKEM. And then I'm everywhere really.
Fantastic. Thanks again for coming on board, and it was a great interview and great chatting with you.
Thanks, mate.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's Electronic Music Man with Red Rackham. Take it easy.